Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast. I'm your host, Dave Markel, coming to you from the Long Valley Studio in Washington, Utah. Most of you already know the foundation of this podcast, but for those of you who are new here, I want you to know that this show serves a dual purpose. First, it provides a safe space for victims and survivors of rape or sexual assault to share their experiences to facilitate healing. Secondly, it educates listeners on the principles of a trauma-informed response, going beyond superficial understanding to foster effective advocacy and positive action. The goals of this podcast are to promote healing and provide a furthering of your knowledge about the prevalence of rape culture in our communities and how being trauma-informed is a powerful step in reducing that prevalence. Thank you for joining me today. I'm glad you're here. This is episode 134, and it's a true pleasure to introduce my guests this week. Yes, I did say guests, Karla Hernandez and her husband, Gerald Erickson. While this interview is a change from my normal format, it's truly a change worth listening to. I don't want to take time explaining this fantastic episode. I'd rather just get right to it so you can become a part of the important mission that these two have co-founded. Listen to the end, and you'll find out what I'm talking about. Here's Karla and Gerald. Karla Hernandez and Gerald Erickson, thank you so much for being with me here on Sex Assault Survivor Stories. It's a pleasure having you with me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to ask both of you. Karla, we'll start with you. Tell us about yourself and how we got connected.
We got connected through Melissa June. She's been our communications advisor. She's been helping us with outreach to communication sources and to people so that we can further expand our message and our awareness in terms of not only what we're doing here in Puerto Rico, but what we're tackling is something that is relevant to not just all over the U.S., but it's a problem all over the world.
Tell us about your background. Did you grow up in Puerto Rico?
Oh, yes. Born and raised here, total island girl. Beyond Disneyland and New York, maybe visiting a cousin in Washington, I haven't really had much experience going outside of Puerto Rico. I mean, this is my home. This is kind of all I knew and all I've ever known. I met him while he was on a trip with some friends 13 and a half years ago. He proposed to me a month after us knowing each other. Then I moved to Utah with him, and we were over there for a while. We lived in Hawaii for about 3 years. He did an internship in Africa. I went to Alaska for a little bit. About 7 years ago, I came to visit some friends and family, and I told him I really didn't want to go back to Utah, and I wanted to stay here. He's such an amazing husband that he accepted to just leave everything behind, and like I did at the beginning when we first met, and just move here with me. And we've been here ever since.
She didn't have to twist my arm. I've been here many times, and I've always loved it. It was a bit of a life shift, but I was always wanting to live here at some point.
Well, Karla, for somebody who has only spent a little bit of time in the U.S., your English is amazing. I commend you on that. Don't know how you picked it up so well, but you do really well with our language.
I guess speaking a language out of survival just so that people can understand your sense of humor does a lot. Because one thing is speaking a language, but another thing is just trying to get your point across.
So where in Utah did you guys live? Because I'm in Washington, Utah, down near St. George.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm from Salt Lake. So we've lived there for several years. That's where I was born and raised. So you're from Utah?
Well, I'm a transplant here. I moved here about 2001, so 25 years ago.
That's crazy.
It's beautiful down here. In fact, it's supposed to get up to 91 today. But you guys have good weather year-round there in Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, 70 degrees, and everybody's out with jackets, and it's socks
up
and
in the
sandals.
Mountains, you might get 60-degree weather up high, but out down here, we're always in the high 70s or into the 90s. So
Right. Well, Gerald, tell us about yourself.
So before I met Karla, I grew up in Salt Lake, lived most of my life there. Nothing too crazy about that. I just had a pretty normal life. Nothing exceptionally unique to my life other than just my own perspective, I guess. And then just meeting Karla in Puerto Rico, we had a really beautiful connection at first, and then that's what sort of inspired us to obviously get married. So we've had about almost 13 years of marriage now. And as she said, we've lived in Utah, we lived in Hawaii, went to school there. So we've kind of bounced between Utah and Hawaii. The last 10 years, those were our main places. But then recently, we've lived in Puerto Rico.
Is Puerto Rico where you guys plan to stay? Is this a long-term thing, you think?
I think so.
It's for the moment, we're not planning on anything else. I think we're very open people and we go where we feel called to be. And I think at the moment that's obviously here. So we don't have any plans to move away.
Well, let's go back then to something you brought up, Karla, is that we connected through Melissa, your publicist. She contacted me to tell me that you had a story, not only a rape or a sex assault story, but a mission out of that to change the laws in Puerto Rico and strengthen the victims' rights laws for sex assault and rape victims. What are you able to tell us about your experience of rape?
I think it would be ideal to start with my story so that that can give a little bit of context of why we're doing everything we're doing.
Sure.
As we said, we moved back to Puerto Rico. I just felt that I wanted to go back home. After being in Utah and even Hawaii, it's pretty similar, but it just didn't felt the same. And there's so many Puerto Ricans, like young professionals, that are just leaving the island, that I felt that it's good for some people to come back that really care about this place, and especially people that are coming back with an outside perspective. So it was one of the things that it wasn't until I left that I learned to appreciate what home was. In that appreciation, we would do something called, they call it here internal tourism, which is where people go and explore the island. They just go to different beaches, they go to different rivers to explore the island.
There's a lot of beautiful areas
Yes,
here.
there's so much to do. I love the beach, and he loves surfing. A lot of the beaches that we go, they're surfing beaches. And there was a day, one of those typical days, we would do that all the time. We would frequent the same places. Usually he would go surfing, and then I would just stay hanging out, what people do at the beach. And it happens that that particular day, before the sunset, I walk towards the water to see if he has come out from surfing to meet up with him.
For context, it was kind of far from where she was to where I was. It was kind of a long paddle, so it wasn't like we could see each other or anything. I was really far away. It was a spot that we had been many times. It was kind of a family-friendly area, but there was a lot less people there that day.
And there were big sand dunes too. So it was like a very beautiful, wild type of a beach area, black sand. That used to be one of my favorite places in the island. There's also a lot of fishermen that go to that area to go fishing in the surrounding parts, because it's where a river meets with the ocean. So then the surfers, to go to the surf spot, they swim across the river. A lot of the times, just go and I meet up with him, and then we come back to the car. So then in that moment, when I was walking towards the river, three surfers were actually walking the opposite way. So then in that moment, there was a man a little bit farther from me, I think about 10 feet away from me. And I asked him from the far, hey, is the river, is it deep? Because the current was kind of strong. And sometimes I would just cross the river and meet him at the other side. It's something people do there all the time. Girlfriends of surfers go all the time. Female surfers go alone. So it's a place that basically a lot of females go to. It's just a place that women frequent. It's very common. The girlfriend, the wife, she stays at the beach while the man is going surfing or surfer females alone. And I asked, hey, is the river deep? Because the current was strong. And then the guy was, oh, yeah, I can help you cross. And I was like, oh, no, and no, thank you. And then I started turning back. There was like a family that had a picnic on the top of the sand dunes. You know, they were packing up and they were walking away. And I was like, oh, like I'm alone. And I guess that has to do with my naiveness and innocence, that you don't realize that people are really capable of doing things like that. So then I started walking back. I was like, oh, okay, I need to start heading back. And then all of a sudden, I got put on a headlock, got knocked to the ground, and the man climbed on top of me and he started strangling me. I screamed as loud as I could. Nobody heard me. I was screaming, I was fighting, I was punching him. And it was kind of very hard to get out of that situation. I couldn't breathe. I was just fighting as hard as I could, to the point where I just black out, seeing little bright lights and everything just went dark. When I was in that state of blackness, I saw the possibilities. It's like, okay, what if after he rapes me, he's afraid I'm going to go tell the police, and then he just kills me and tosses me to the river? That was a possibility. It's like the perfect place to do it. Something inside of me, a voice or an essence that told me just stop fighting, just cooperate. So then I was able to wake myself up, and then I raised my hands up. The man told me just cooperate. I have a knife, and he showed me a sparkly thing that he had in his pocket, or I will kill you. So then I cooperated, and I could see immediately in the guy's face that in his eyes, that he wasn't really quite there. So I just basically cooperated in everything he was telling me to do. In my mind, I need to convince this guy not to kill me because he doesn't seem like he's well. What if he does what he has to do? He just rapes me. So, okay, so then I just need to basically convince this guy that everything is going to be okay and I'm not going to tell anybody. So then I did, and the guy in his mind immediately, he's, oh, like she's my girlfriend. After everything happened, the whole sexual assault thing happened, I was just looking around to see if somebody came or if my husband came out of the water. And there were instances where I was, okay, I can make a run for it. But then I thought, what if I run and there's nobody at the parking lot? What am I going to do then? So then I thought about all those different outcomes. So this guy is not well. So then I just basically convinced him that I wasn't going to tell anybody and that everything was okay. I did everything he wanted me to do. He was just in a delusional fantasy that I was just his girlfriend. Suddenly, out of the blue, he just changed completely. He went from a person with a knife strangling me to kill me to, oh, yeah, you're my girlfriend. After he was done, I just grabbed my clothes and I started walking towards the car. And then he said, well, let me escort you to make sure you're safe. That kind of a delusion. In that moment, I was, oh, yeah, sure. I was asking him, oh, where do you live? What's your name? Playing it like we're cool. And then I saw my husband coming out of the water. Then I pushed the guy away. I pushed him as hard as I could, and I started screaming. And I told the guy previously, my husband is in the water. He's gonna come out, when I was fighting him. And then he's like, yeah, right. Really? The waves are big. The ocean is crazy. Nobody would be in the water right now. When he sees my husband come out of the water, that man seemed like he saw a ghost. He was like, oh my gosh. So he just ran the other way. And I just ran towards him. I kind of felt inside of me that if I told him immediately what has happened and what was going on, he would go after the guy. And again, I was thinking, what if the guy is with other people? He has a knife. What if many different things? What if my husband kills him and then he goes to jail? Many things. So I was okay, no, we need to go to the car. He is so amazing that he was willing to listen to me. So we both ran to the car. And then once we got to the car, the three surfers that I saw coming out when I was walking towards the river mouth were there. And I told him what happened. And then the other three surfers kind of also they got involved. They overheard. So we called 911. They took a very long time. I just felt very, very scared. I felt like I just don't know if this guy is going to come back with his friends and hurt all of us. And the police wasn't coming. The call got hung up twice. It was just a very bad situation. I just don't feel comfortable being here. So then we all drove to the nearest police station. My husband took pictures of the two license plates. There were two cars in addition to our cars. We went to the police station, and as soon as we got to the police station, we were in a lot of chaos. From the beginning, there was no urgency, no empathy. I would say that I wasn't treated in the way that I think someone in the situation that we were in should have been treated. And I thought things would be more simple, but then after that, things only got more complicated. Later on, the police went to where the beach was, and then they brought three men. None of those three men were the person. They took a long time. They took so long to get there that the guy escaped. They took very long time. If they would have gotten there with enough time, and they would have believed me and believed us and believed the people that were there, they would have gotten there and they would have been able to catch the guy. But what happened was that they took so long that the guy just grabbed his car and escaped. Throughout that process, then I went to the hospital to get a rape kit done. And immediately, the first thing that happened, the doctor was, "Oh, are you sure this happened to you? This is complicated. This takes a long time to get done. Are you sure you want to do this?" And then I overheard her talking to the nurses saying, "Oh, another one." And I was like, "Oh my gosh.
Wow.
How many come here to get rape kits done?" It was very bad, and I was just in a state of shock. I wasn't crying. My mind is always like calculating things. It's always problem solving. It's always trying to figure stuff out. It's just the way my mind works. So I was just asking a lot of questions to the doctor. I was just, okay, what's going to happen? And I guess, I don't know if it was the way I was, that I was just asking too many questions. There was irritation from part, like they did not want to give me information. What's going to happen now? When is the police coming? And they were just, okay, you're not really acting like a victim. Like you're just not being hysterical. Okay, no, because I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to basically what's going on. Did they catch the guy? And then to say in the whole process of getting my rape kit done, no empathy. None of my questions were being answered. It was just, yeah, I felt there's a saying here. People say you're a zero to the left. You're just nothing. What you're saying, the way you felt, it was just purely protocol. So then as if all of that wasn't enough, then they did not want it to let me meet up with my husband.
They didn't want to let me into the
to where hospital. I was.
This was during COVID,
yes.
But it was end of 2020. But here they took COVID way over the top, so the protocols were way extreme. Mm-hmm. They basically didn't want to let me in the hospital.
But the thing is, they had me in a separate room, locked up by myself, so it should have been okay for him to be with me. I was able
to get in eventually.
Yeah, I was very calm, asking a lot of questions. I was problem solving, very grounded with the whole situation. But when they told me that he couldn't come in, that's when I just lost my mind and started screaming at everybody. And also, they did not want it to let me shower.
You'd already done the exam.
They did the exam, and they did not want to let me shower. They did not want to let me be with him. So I just started screaming to the point where they're like, okay, we'll find you a bathroom and we'll let your husband come. So then the complicated situation was I didn't have to spend the night at the hospital. The reason why I spent the night, I had an anti-AIDS IV strapped to my hand. I did not know what was going on, but whatever it is that they were putting on me, I got an allergic reaction and I was getting very, very sick. My face was being swelled up and the doctor, nowhere to be found.
But there was no one that was checking on her, and I was freaking out, obviously, because of the incident. But then seeing her get the reaction and that nobody was around to check on her, I had to yell in the hallway to get, and even doing that, they took a very long time to get somebody to come check on her. So it was just almost as bad of a hospital experience as you could imagine. But yeah.
Yeah, so then I really wanted to go home, and we had to wait until they brought some government social worker that I do not know what that person's purpose was.
Some protocol that they had to bring in a government aid social worker to ask her some questions, but that process was so long for them to come that we had to stay the whole night, and then the person took about 2 minutes to do their job, and then they left. So it was just...
Yeah, I just felt that the going to the police station, being in the hospital was as traumatic as the rape itself. It was just horrible. It's okay, you have an open wound and they're just dumping a bucket of salt. I felt so dehumanized. I don't know. Every time I think about that, now I have PTSD for hospitals. I just pass by a hospital and I'm just, oh my gosh. And sadly, I mean, that's me. I was very calm, very grounded, just asking questions, trying to cooperate. This probably happens to people all the time. I guess that was the first phase of the story. Then after that, what came was the difficulties with law enforcement. Very, very difficult. So then basically, after the first part, everything related to the night of the incident itself, then me being me, I was, okay, let's catch the guy. Let's cooperate with law enforcement. If we work together, we have information, we have the photos. And then some of the people in the community that they're, no, not in my town, you don't. We have wives, we have daughters. Like, we're not okay with those things happening here. So then we got a lot of support.
We had spoken with people from the community, and they immediately were like, oh, okay, we'll help you find the guy. The police aren't going to find him. We'll find him, and we'll take care of him. So it was kind of like, that was an option, and it's probably a very realistic option. Obviously, that would have maybe felt good momentarily, but we knew that would have been not a good option. It was a hard choice, but yeah, we decided to take the traditional route.
Yes.
Even though we knew going into it, it was going to be pretty hard, but we didn't know it was going to be as crazy as it was.
So then the people in the area, they had cameras. They saw the guy leaving. Some of them like, oh yeah, you can see the guy's face
like
leaving, local businesses. And we were having engagement, but then they were like, hey, unless we get a subpoena, like we can't give you guys this footage. We need to give it to the police. So then we were just knocking on the police, like, hey, like, these people, they have the footage. Like, why haven't you gone in? Like, even haven't gone to get it. The people from the community were calling the police station.
Just to be clear, it wasn't footage of the incident. It was footage of the roadways leading in and out of the area that you could see the car that we took photos of. I don't know what they could have done with that, but it definitely could have been used.
Yeah, so that and different things like that throughout the process.
An overall theme of just stay in your corner, don't tell us how to do our job, we don't need your input on this, and just keeping us in the dark, because I guess they weren't used to people that actually wanted to help and be engaged in the process. Like, annoyance, what are you guys doing, leave us alone, and just not even talking to us. So
yes, so then we ended up working with a private investigator. We gave him all of the information that we had, and it ended up being that the suspect we had was different to the suspect that police have. They didn't want it to do a lineup. I was like, really? We're not going to do a lineup? They were like, trust us.
They told her, oh, we
all
have
roads
the guy.
lead to him.
We have the guy. You just need to basically trust us and follow the process. She was like, no, I would like to identify him. She had to beg to do that. And then finally they let her do it in a very sketchy, kind of crappy setup that wouldn't pass the sniff test if you saw it from the outside. And so anyways, the guy wasn't in the lineup, and she said that, but they told her he was.
And even like that, the agent in charge of my case got very upset. I didn't got pressured into just picking anybody. Like, no, person is not there. By the way, my case has gone through several prosecutors, but those were terrible experiences. The first prosecutor made me feel scared into leaving the case. They would tell me different things like, oh yeah, like if your case goes to court, they could shred you to pieces. Yeah, once your case goes to, they'll have your address and they'll know where you live. Different things like that. And obviously,
and they told you that their suspect, the guy,
oh, he has the best lawyer in
lawyer.
town.
It was just things that you couldn't really.
And they weren't allowing me to have my husband next to me. Like, the meetings need to be alone. You need to come in with the prosecutor. You cannot bring in your husband. You cannot bring in anybody. This is only between you and me. So then behind closed doors, they could tell me all those things and just basically traumatize a victim into feeling re-traumatized, into having a victim feel like, what's the point of me trying to pursue justice? The person that's supposed to just stand by me, which is my prosecutor, is actually making me feel very bad. And I guess there's certain reasons why they wouldn't, confidentiality and things like that. In the end, it's up to the prosecutor. It was just a bad situation. Then after that, I started being more public with my story. That's when I met Melissa. She interviewed me and she featured my story in Forbes magazine that she wrote about the state of emergency in Puerto Rico. My assault happened in December of 2020. Then in 2021, there was a declaration of emergency declared by the governor at the time for the high rates of gender-based violence.
Particularly femicides.
Femicides, yes. So that was around that time period. So then she interviewed me and then she featured my story. After that, we were kept in the dark and they were just more.
It felt like
yes.
In that time period that then they started to be more proactive with their case, which makes sense if they realize that there's a spotlight on the issue and especially her story being featured. But even then, it was almost like even more irritation and annoyance on their part. Oh, great. Now everybody knows about this. And from start to finish, it was a very adversarial feeling, even though we entered it really trying to engage and be proactive and help in the process however we could. That wasn't okay. At the very end of it, she got taken into a room and told, we're closing your case. And she asked why, and they didn't give her really any solid reason.
After that, we were like, hey, we've been working with a private investigator. He tried to meet with the agent in charge of the case. He tried to meet with the prosecutor, but they didn't want to have anything to do with him. It was like, okay, the case closed. We just want to get rid of this girl. That's the overall vibe. After that, started becoming even more public with my story, and I went into local media. Like, I was in multiple different channels.
That was a process of over a year and a half, maybe. And then what she's talking about with the local media, that was in 2023, summer of 2023.
And that's where we started having other victims.
To backtrack, we had started in 2022. We decided, based on some meetings we had with other women that had not the same type of experience, but had also experienced maybe domestic abuse and things like that. That's where we decided to start this organization.
What happened to me, I started being more public about it in terms of the way I was treated throughout the criminal process, all those details and technicalities. And then we started having other victims reach out to us, not just sexual assault, but also domestic abuse and other people that their cases never even went to court. They just got ghosted.
Similar versions in different contexts. A lot of things have to do with being let down by the system. At that time, that's when we decided, we had never thought about that. We were never thinking about, we're going to start an organization. Actually, somebody else came to us with the idea, as you could be the face of a nonprofit and we could work around using your story as a catalyst, but also just addressing these issues. So we ended up starting the organization with two other women who were also survivors of domestic abuse. After we had founded the organization and started moving into some planning of projects and things, it became clear that our visions were just not quite aligned with what they wanted to do. We were a lot more focused on what she's telling you about, just the systemic problem. And they wanted to do a little bit more to do with prevention or care for victims, which everything is important. So we're not saying anything about that. It wasn't our focus at the time. So we decided to part ways, and it was friendly. We're still friends with them. But basically, it's just her and I. Our first initiative has been we had met with some legal professionals throughout the process and realized that victims' rights is a core issue here that's not being addressed. That a lot of the challenges we faced, or that she faced, have to do with the fact that victims have almost no rights throughout the criminal process. That the accused have a lot more rights, which in certain cases, that's obviously, there's reasons for that. But what we've done is we worked with a lawyer who's part of the Justice Department, actually, with him and a team of students, which we got on as interns from the UPR Law School, so the University of Puerto Rico Law School. We did a very comprehensive research study of all the victims' rights laws throughout the 50 states, 21 other countries, and did an analysis. Okay, here's what the deficiencies are, and here's what the best practices are. So we compiled all of that. We have a big paper we made. Part of it's been published, and the second part's supposed to be published this month, I think. Mm-hmm. And the main thing from that project is we created a new Victims' Bill of Rights. So that would incorporate all these new elements that we found that were lacking. And the general scope of it would apply to all victims of crime. So it's not just sexual violence. It's a Victims' Bill of Rights that would apply to anybody. I think all victims of crime.
Pretty much all.
Yeah, we're not the lawyers, so I can't give you the best breakdown of it, but we know the scope of what we did. But there's a lot that we added to it that also has to do with specific to sexual violence, things related to rape kit processing, those types of things.
What about advocacy in terms of victims being questioned by law enforcement or the prosecutor's office? And did you write into it that you're allowing for a victim advocate to be with the victim during all that process?
Yeah, we saw that in several states, and we incorporate that into this one.
Because I think that's critical. I think what you said, Karla, kind of hit the nail on the head, and that is that this process, just this process, can be more devastating and more traumatizing than the rape itself. And that's borne out in research, where many victims and survivors have come forward and said that very thing, that the law enforcement response and the prosecutorial response is so traumatizing in the sense that you are isolated, you are shut down, you're victim blamed, and you're not believed. Particularly those last two, victim blaming and not believing the victim's story, are two of the most re-traumatizing situations that any victim or survivor can experience. I talk about this a lot on this show, and I think the reason I'm bringing it out again is because I want my listeners to understand that that's the truth of the matter. But I also want the law enforcement end of my audience and the prosecutorial end of my audience to really have an open mind and an open ear to what it is that you two are doing to further victims' rights in not only Puerto Rico, but all over the U.S. and the world, because this is a global problem. Mm-hmm. It's not just Puerto Rico based. It's not just U.S. based. These are research projects that have occurred worldwide that show the same thing, that victims' rights are not being met, even in small ways. And the sad truth of it is that many of the states that you've probably done research on here in the United States, almost every state, if not all, I think all of them have a victims' rights bill incorporated into state law. And oftentimes those statutory rights for victims, especially in rape and sex assault cases, are overlooked and not adhered to. And I just commend you both on what you're doing and tell you how much I appreciate you from a Sex Assault Survivor Stories podcast viewpoint, that I endorse what you're doing and really want to know, how can my audience then help you? What is it that we could say or have them do that would help your cause?
What we're doing with you, we're trying to be more open and vocal about this initiative, and we started a mini campaign. So it's called Justice Now. And that's on our website, so you could go to it. It's vivoalliance.org/justice now. And in that, there's a simple overview of what we did and also a petition link. And we're currently engaging legislators right now. She and I have been meeting with people. It's a process. It's kind of slow, and especially if you don't have a lot of awareness about it, a lot of maybe media or people aren't really seeing it, these things take a long time. So we're attacking it from both angles. We're trying to get public awareness through media and things like this, but we're also actually going and meeting with the legislators to see if they can adopt it and put it forward. And so if people are willing to sign the petition, that's very helpful. And then if there's anybody else that's open to talking to us or sharing the story, we're obviously very open to that. That's basically what we're trying to do right now, is just be as vocal about this as possible. And something you said, which is really key, and it's a core part of what we're doing, is just that concept that even if they do have rights, for example, a state that has a better Victims' Bill of Rights than Puerto Rico, that is great, and we're going to try to implement that. But it really is about putting it into practice, because a lot of the time it's victims have rights on paper, or what did you say? You say they have rights in theory, but not in practice.
And we're trying to reinforce the practice side of things, meaning where law enforcement and prosecutors in charge of those cases are obligated to do the things they're supposed to do. And we are giving victims, even if it's not a lot, but a little bit of veto power in the way they are being treated throughout the criminal process.
Right.
Yeah.
Do the people that sign this petition need to be Puerto Ricans, or can they be from anywhere?
This is a universal thing throughout our research project. Yes, like other states have different things, but there's still a lot of improvement on this that needs to be done throughout all of the states.
Yeah, in our petition, ideally, we could get as many Puerto Ricans to sign it, right? This is the law we're trying to change, is here. But in general, we're just trying to create public awareness about this, because this applies everywhere, but obviously where we're starting is here locally. Yes. And I think the legislators here need to be aware that everybody cares about this. What we're attacking is a local issue, but it's not. It's everywhere. The more eyes that are on this, the better. That's how we're approaching it.
Yeah, solidarity with the cause itself.
I'm going to implore both of you to then pursue pushing people in Puerto Rico to listen to this podcast, specifically your episode, because I want people to hear what you have to say. And I want people to be aware of the petition and search you out on your website and get that petition signed. And the best way to do that is to get as many ears on this episode as possible. So if you'll push this episode, I'll push your petition. And of course, this is a worldwide podcast, and I have listeners from all over, but Puerto Rico has quite a few listeners already. Get it out there that you guys have an episode on here, and I'll put it out there that this is a petition that needs to be signed by everybody and that support needs to go your way. Are you also in need of donations?
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Yes.
Okay.
Just to give sort of a quick explanation, we aren't a 501c3, but we operate underneath a fiscal sponsor, so they have the designations. All of the donations will get filtered to us, but you'll get the tax exemptions if you need that. It's all set up appropriately, and we have explanations for it if people are curious.
Okay. I'm going to try and give this a little bit more attention, because I really want your cause to be a big portion of what Sex Assault Survivor Stories is pushing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Thanks. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. Let me say this, Karla, I am so sorry for the experience that you had that even brought you to have to meet with me through Melissa and through this episode. At the same time, I'm equally grateful that you've turned that horrific experience into something so worthy of attention and people's signatures and people's money. Thank you, both of you, for what you're doing to promote the causes and the bringing of justice to victims and survivors of rape and sex assault, of all kinds of interpersonal violence. I appreciate you both being here. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having us. We're very grateful for your willingness to pushing this topic.
I would say huge thanks to you, and I think what you're doing is uniquely courageous too. There's podcasts everywhere about everything, but I don't think there's a lot that really pin down on this topic. So that's incredible that you're doing this. So thanks for having us.
Thank you both again. This has been amazing, and I appreciate your time and the energy you put into joining me today.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
That does it for another episode of Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast. I want to offer my deepest gratitude to Karla Hernandez and her husband, Gerald Erickson, for sharing their powerful and painful journey with us. Karla's courage in recounting her story and turning her trauma into advocacy through the creation of Vivo Alliance is nothing short of inspiring. It's people like Karla who remind us that even in the face of unimaginable injustice, survivors can rise, lead, and drive change. If today's episode moved you, and I hope it did, I urge you to take action. Start by believing. When a victim or survivor comes forward to share their story, the most powerful thing we can do is to listen without judgment, because we all know someone whose life has been impacted by rape or sexual assault. It's also time that we normalize the conversation, because when we do, we're helping to rid our communities of rape culture and build a world that finally listens, believes, and acts. And please, go visit Vivo Alliance, read about the movement Karla and Gerald have started, and sign the petition calling for a victims' rights statute in Puerto Rico. Then share it, post it, talk about it. Every signature matters. Every voice counts. If this podcast speaks to you, I'd be extremely grateful if you'd leave a 5-star rating and a few words of encouragement. Your messages mean the world to me, and they're part of what keeps this show going. You'll find my email in the episode notes, and I'd truly love to hear from you. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another powerful episode of Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS Podcast. We'll see you next week.